It is a Monday morning during the NFL season, which means I am here with y'all recapping every single game from the NFL slate on Sunday. We're going deep. We are in our bag. We are in our Ziploc. We are in our brown paper. We're going to go game by game. We're going to talk about the biggest fantasy takeaways, the biggest fantasy recaps. We'll go through all of the snap counts and routes that I have found, one humble man, and my biggest takeaways for him, as well as injuries that happen, what y'all need to know for the waiver wire tomorrow, all that good stuff, all right? Every single Monday, I'm going to be coming to you live with this same exact video, as I did throughout the offseason, as I did throughout the preseason, right? As soon as the games were done, we came to you with the biggest recaps, the important things to know, okay? And since it is a Monday during football season, that means that Underdog obviously has a free square available. So if you're not on the Underdog platform yet, they've got a free winner for y'all, all right? 0.5 yards tonight, just a half a yard for Aaron Rodgers. As long as we don't see a duplicate of what happened last year, you're going to be a winner on Underdog. And the best part about the promo that they have going on now is when you sign up with code BDGE, if you're a first-time depositor, like not only you getting this free square, but you're getting access to the Big Dog membership for the full year for free. It is normally a monthly membership that you got to pay for. But if you are a first-time depositor on Underdog using our code, you get that access for the whole year, all right? So if you want to listen to nothing else, you just want our waiver wire rankings, our weekly rankings, sit start, etc., you do so by downloading Underdog Fantasy and using the code BDGE. I also want to throw in at the end of this video, we will go through all of the picks that I made on Underdog from this previous weekend, recapping, see how I did, see if I'm up units, down units, where we can improve, what we're going to be looking for tonight's game on Monday nights. And y'all could always follow all my bets on Pick'It, a free-to-download app. And here we are. So y'all know the drill. If you are new here, we basically throw the box scores up from ESPN up on the screen, and we go game by game as I talk through the stats. But hopefully I can get a little bit more in-depth than the box scores, because a lot of people out here be box score watching in week one. Now, I want to say with week one, I know a lot of people are freaking out. And I'm fine coming to conclusions or coming to realizations in week one. But I think some of the biggest trapdoors, some of the richest fool's gold is not being able to contextualize what happens in week one and looking at things incorrectly. Week one, like in particular right now, there are so many teams that played sloppy in week one that did not play at all in the preseason. And one of the biggest traps I see is coming to conclusions on teams that have new head coaches, new offense coordinators, new schemes, new quarterbacks. All of this new trying to mesh in week one, right? The Falcons are a great example of this. I have been pessimistic about them all summer. I went on a podcast at some point during the summer where I predicted them, I think, to go 10-7. We went game by game, and I was like, here's where they're going to win, here's where they're going to lose. I thought they were going to beat the Steelers. I was like, okay, we need to have one win in the first 3 weeks. The point was, over the first half of the season, I had them going like 3-5. The second half, our schedule gets great. We were paper champions coming into the year. This is not Madden. It's not Madden where you just put players in and based on their overall stats and based on their speed and based on their overall, ranking, rating, that's how they play in the games. No, this is going to take a while. Like, we didn't see Kirk Cousins play at all during the preseason. Okay, and now we're throwing him in a brand new system with brand new weapons, and we expect everything to be picture perfect. Like, that's not how the real world works. So judging a lot of teams and players based on what we saw in week one, where teams don't really take the preseason that seriously anymore. You have so many starters not playing. It's going to take weeks for them to really get into the flow of things, playing at full speed, playing with rhythm and timing, especially in new offenses. So I don't want to overreact to any new quarterbacks, any new offenses, any new schemes, any new weapons, and all that thing. I think that's like one of the biggest takeaways. I also think overreacting to players who had big games or bad games based on game scripts that just ain't going to happen going forward. Like Justice Hill, prime time, got a lot of play, caught a lot of passes. How often are the fucking Baltimore Ravens going to be down and trailing? That is super infrequently. We're not going to see Justice Hill catch 6-7 passes a game. I think about Ramondre Stevenson, right? He's a guy that I didn't really want a part of throughout the summer. They beat the Bengals. The important thing to start to look at when it comes to these NFL teams, especially in week one, is not prioritizing what you saw in the box score, but starting to look at position groups and start to cement what they're going to be, right? For instance, Raheem Mostert. I am nervous about Raheem Mostert and his production going forward. He did get banged up in this game, I believe, but the sentiment all offseason and all summer was the concern for the Miami Dolphins, their offensive line. They lose Robert Hunt and they lose Connor Williams. They were their two best run-blocking offensive linemen from last year. They lose them, and you could tell yesterday they could not run the ball for shit. So that is far more of a problem for Raheem Mostert than it is Devon Achane. Devon Achane was used heavily in the passing game. Vegas had his line going into the game at like 25 receiving yards, which on paper obviously looks silly now because he went for like 60, but that's a really high mark for a running back on a week-to-week basis on these betting and gambling apps. So we look at the Miami Dolphins offensive line. That's a concern for Raheem Mostert. There are other underlying metrics, of course, as well. Like Devon Achane got both of the carries inside the 5-yard line, all right? So we'll dive deep into those types of things that I saw. People will freak out about Caleb Williams. In my opinion, I think this is more of an indictment on Tennessee's defense and the fact that they signed L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie and Quandre Diggs and Tavondre Sweat, their rookie, played fantastic ball. Like that, I think is more indicative of what actually happened in this game, because I think we're going to look back in 6 to 8 weeks and be like, Tennessee is a stay away defense for a lot of fantasy teams. So there are a lot of instances throughout week one where people are just unfamiliar with position groups and how good or bad a team is in that sense, and like overreacting to like Baker Mayfield's performance. Washington and like the New York Giants they're both abysmal defenses where opposite teams are going to put up big points. If Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold didn't have electric games in week one, we would have massive problems. They did what they should have done, okay? Same thing with like Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. The Arizona Cardinals defense is also horrendous, okay? So let's not overreact to really bad position groups on both sides of the ball. Tight ends, everybody's freaking out about tight ends. If you took any of the early tight ends, right? You could yell at me for liking Trey McBride. You could yell at anyone for liking Travis Kelce or Sam Laporta or Mark Andrews or any of these dudes who are early tight ends, like the top 5. I want to remind you, last year, a lot of y'all are not going to remember this. Last year, the tight end one in week one was Hunter Henry, who caught 5 passes for 56 yards and a touchdown. That was the fantasy tight end in week one last year. So let's just settle down. Let's get into the week one recaps. We're going to be all right. We're going to make it. I just saw a super chat come in for Tim King. I want to let you know I don't know what that is right now. I will not be answering questions on this live stream, so please save your money. Do not throw super chats my way. I don't know if that was a question or if that was just, supporting. I love you if that was just a support super chat, but I'm locked in right now. I'm zoned in, and I just want to give you as much value as humanly possible with these recaps. So no super chats. If you do want to support the brand, the best way to do so is by going to underdogfantasy.com, downloading the app, using promo code BDGE. When you deposit $10 or more, you're going to get a free square for tonight, Aaron Rodgers, half a passing yard, and you will get access to our Big Dog membership free for the entire season just for doing so. Just $10. I don't know how this works. We are going to dive into the games game by game. Popeyes, apparently you're getting some free advertisements here. So we'll start off on the opening night kickoff with Kansas City and Baltimore. What a fucking game we had in this one. I'm going to try to keep these precise and only give the biggest fantasy takeaways here. Like I'm going to try not to go into every single player and every single position because that would take me forever, and I don't know if I would actually survive a video for that long. So Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes did their thing. Lamar Jackson, I will say one of the bigger takeaways here, and again, this was one of our concerns for a lot of the offseason, was that Baltimore, their offensive line is extremely recycled. They lose 3 of their veteran key pieces this offseason, replace them with younger guys. And every time I brought that up, there'd be people in the comments like, they replaced him with guys that are really big. They're like 6'8", 320. Don't worry about it. I'm like, that's not how it works. Just because you're big doesn't mean you're good. And we saw that become a problem. Like, everything in the Baltimore passing game was quick hit, line of scrimmage, get the ball out of his hands extremely fast. And it led to Lamar Jackson being pressured at an insane rate, which led to him scrambling a lot. So it looks like we're going to be in for a big season of Lamar Jackson running, which I don't even know that there's a point of saying that, because every season's a big fucking season for Lamar Jackson running the ball. But he had a huge game in their week 1 game, obviously. Derrick Henry got into the end zone. Derrick Henry split snaps pretty significantly with Justice Hill, but as I said at the beginning of this video, that's not a concern to me. Justice Hill is not a top-end waiver wire target for me. I will be doing a full waiver wire video that will go up tomorrow morning. So again, if you're new here and you want to get all of these recaps, every single Monday I'll be doing this. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn the notification button, or hit the notification button so it'll let you know when I go live. And then every Tuesday, of course, we do the waiver wire. So subscribe for that. The big news here, of course, is Isaiah Likely. He went crazy, led the team with 12 targets, 9 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown. Now, just watching this game, just watching him play, like, there was nothing fluky about it. You can just see that Isaiah Likely is simply good at the game of football. The tough part becomes, with Mark Andrews. Yes, Mark Andrews faced a lot of double teams there. It felt like their defensive game plan was like, make sure Chris Jones disrupts the middle of the line and then double team and double bracket Mark Andrews. The way that Likely was moving, though, it doesn't feel like somehow he's not going to be a part of the game plan to a significant degree going forward. They used a lot of 2 tight end sets, and they should, because he's probably their second best pass catcher behind Zay Flowers, or the second best tight end, but third best pass catcher behind Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. But Isaiah Likely was in on 70% of the routes. Mark Andrews was in on 75% of the routes. Now, I will say Mark Andrews was dealing with some sort of an injury for the latter part of the summer. He was in a car accident and missed some time, and et cetera. And it felt like he might have been coming off the field a little bit more than he normally would. That being said, I don't know how you could be Baltimore and look at what Isaiah Likely did and think like, okay, let's just put him back into the tight end 2 role and not really have him play a role here. So it's probably a little bit of KC game plan dependent. It's probably a little bit of like Baltimore trailing, which is not going to be the common game script going forward for them. So I don't want to go crazy on the Isaiah Likely hype, but you could just see there are so few tight ends in the NFL that can make plays after the catch the way that Isaiah Likely can. Most of the tight ends in this league are fucking cones. Regardless of how athletic they are, regardless of how fast they can run in a straight, you have so many dudes who run like a 4.5, 740 at 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds, and they're athletic. But they're cones, man. They can't go side to side. They're not shifty. They don't have like the awareness and lateral agility to move at a specific level that a dude like Isaiah Likely does. So he's here to stay for sure. And he's likely going to be, no pun intended, the top waiver wire pickup this week, arguably with a dude like J.K. Dobbins. Now, it's going to be team dependent. It's going to be league dependent. If you're half PPR, it's a little bit less appetizing to spend it on a tight end. If you're in a tight end premium, obviously he's juicy. You also have to consider the fact that like Mark Andrews is not going anywhere. He's built up really good chemistry with Lamar Jackson. So we'll have to see how that plays out. The rest of the month of September, we'll have to see if Likely is really like a 70-80% snap guy. But if, next week he goes 3 for 34 and everybody started him, would anyone really be surprised? Probably not. Now, on the flip side of the ball, Isaiah Pacheco got in. Isaiah Pacheco probably could have had a bigger game. He dropped a really easy pass. Rashee Rice did his thing. This was someone we were really high on all season. Xavier Worthy obviously had a big game, scoring 2 touchdowns. Now, Xavier Worthy, I know that everybody's like yelling in the comments. We'll get to Philadelphia and we'll get to Saquon Barkley. Here's what I'll say. Week 1, I'm not out here trying to like take victory laps. I'm not out here trying to eat fucking L's and losses and whatnot in week 1 because my channel is not based around DFS week 1. My channel is based around season long. My channel is based around trying to build you up a team that will be good for 18 weeks. That being said, and I've already said this quite a few times, Saquon Barkley, I will be on the wrong side of history for that one. I told y'all to fade Saquon Barkley. That is looking like the top 5 worst call of all time in the history of YouTube fantasy football space. Not great. Xavier Worthy Saquon will be the one admission of absolute eating a fucking L that I will take right now. Wrong side of history for sure. All right. Xavier Worthy, he had his biggest target competition in Hollywood Brown out for this game, and despite that, he caught 2 passes. And the pass that he caught for the touchdown was just a complete broken coverage. So, yes, at the end of the day, he had the big game, and he scored, 20 points or whatever. And his speed is obviously extremely fucking apparent. There's no one, I never came on here and said 4.21 speed is not real type of shit. I'm not sold that he's going to be a huge piece of this offense still outside of these gimmicky-ish type plays. So we'll move on from KC. Obviously, you're starting him as long as Hollywood Brown is out. You're starting Travis Kelce still. I'm not overly concerned about it. You're starting Isaiah Pacheco, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let us move on to the Eagles and the Packers. Now, Jordan Love sprained his MCL. Apparently, he did not suffer a high ankle sprain, which is good news because a lot of quarterbacks are they're just fucking tough, man, and they battle through these injuries quickly. I believe the timetable for him was 3 to 6 weeks for this return. I wouldn't be surprised if he misses 2 weeks and comes back in week 3, but we'll have to see how they kind of play it out. Apparently, they reached out to Ryan Tannehill, but they've already announced Malik Willis as the starter for next week, so he'll be a super flex target for you. Malik Willis is not a good thrower of the football at the NFL level. Okay? So that's obviously a massive hit to the entire Green Bay receiving group because they were kind of starting off really hot. You had Romeo Doubs, 7 targets, led the team with 7 targets. He's Jordan Love's favorite target. Jaden Reed went crazy, though. He had the end-around touchdown for 33 yards on the ground, then 4 for 138, and a touchdown because of the 70-yard reception that he had. It's clear to me, and I felt like it was pretty clear last offseason or last year, that Jaden Reed's the most talented receiver in this group. Christian Watson, do not confuse talented with athletic. Just because you are athletic does not mean you are the most talented wide receiver. Now, Christian Watson had a bunch of red zone targets, a bunch of end zone targets. He probably could have ended the game. He only went 3 for 13, and it's not like his games were going to be that much bigger, but he could have scored another touchdown. He could have went 4 for 20 and 2 touchdowns. But again, buying into just touchdowns, buying into Xavier Worthy's 2 touchdowns on 2 touches I think it's fucking stupid. And that would have been the case for Christian Watson. So Jaden Reed, for me, feels like the one here. Do we still have a ton of inconsistent weeks ahead of us with this receiver group? Absolutely. Josh Jacobs got workhorse treatment, 19 opportunities, didn't really turn into much. Ended up carrying the ball, 5.3 yards per carry. Did not look great doing it. But here's the thing with these guys. It's easy to go look at Joe Mixon, who had a monster fucking game. It could have been the game that Joe Mixon had could have been exactly the game that Josh Jacobs had. If they didn't score long touchdowns, right? If Jaden Reed didn't take in a 35-yard touchdown rush, if he didn't catch a 70-yard touchdown pass, those drives could have been an extra 8, 12 plays for this offense going to Josh Jacobs. So Jacobs could have easily had the game that Joe Mixon had. Joe Mixon will have games that Josh Jacobs had throughout this season. And that is the whole thesis behind just investing in players in good offenses. You won't be able to predict every single good game that they have, but over the course of the season, they'll have more good games than bad. And it's another, don't overreact to the week 1 shit because these things will ebb and flow, okay? Joe Mixon's not going to get 35 touches a game. He's going to get a lot of touches, but so is Josh Jacobs. This is just the way that this game ended up playing out. So it was good to see Jacobs get a bunch of carries, a bunch of touches. Obviously, again, didn't really do too much with it, but he gave you a little bit of a floor. Jaden Reed is the one going forward, but if Malik Willis is the quarterback for them, let me pull up the schedule grid right now. NFL schedule grid. So I could actually talk a little bit more about the matchups going forward. So Green Bay plays Indy, who just got kind of torched by CJ Stroud. So it's a good matchup, but if Malik Willis is at the helm, then obviously we are not really looking for the pass catchers here. Like pretty much everybody moves down to a pretty desperate flex play, maybe outside of Josh Jacobs. Like I'm going to play Josh Jacobs, and I might throw Jaden Reed in there. But other than that, obviously the Green Bay offense becomes pretty fucking anemic under Malik Willis. The other call out that I want to make here is Tucker Kraft. He only went 2 for 37, but he played on 80% of the snaps, while Luke Musgrave was a 20% snap player. This was different than the way the year started last year. Like Luke Musgrave was obviously the earlier pick, so they played him a lot more, but I think Tucker Kraft pretty clearly outplayed Luke Musgrave over Luke Musgrave over the second half of last year. They were banged up, whatever, but Tucker Kraft in the games that he played versus Musgrave played, he seemed to be the better receiver to me. And I think Tucker Kraft, obviously the Jordan Love injury kind of like dampens all of this, but if you're desperate for a tight end, I think Tucker Kraft has some staying power here as someone that could have like a really nice week 6 through 18 type of season. On the flip side of the ball, as I said, Saquon's going to bury me and make me look like an absolute dickhead for the year. He looked fantastic. They gave him 24 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts also had a game. One thing I will point out, another thing that like, you don't want to go crazy about week 1 is Philly's offense. Both of these teams looked really sloppy coming out. It was some part of the field. It was some part of not playing in the preseason. It was some part of having to travel to Brazil, and like typically those international games start out very sloppy. So shouldn't have been a surprise that like the first quarter was very, very low scoring, and then things started to pick up afterwards. The offense for Philadelphia ran 76 offensive plays. Now, part of that is Kellen Moore and obviously having that up-tempo offense, which is something that we kind of harped in on all offseason. But 76 plays is not realistic to expect going forward. So we had a lot of big games where like A.J. Brown, 5 for 119 and a touchdown. He's just an absolute fucking thug. Devontae Smith, 8 targets, 7 catches to 84 yards. The running backs and Jalen Hurts combined for 38 carries. So 76, to give you context, I believe the NFL team that led last year in terms of offensive plays per game, I don't actually remember who it was, but I think the number was either 68 or 69 plays per game. That was number 1 in the NFL. Philly ran 76 plays in this game. So that's going to come down by between 10 and 15 plays. So take that ratio however you want, but that's something that will come down to the mean, where maybe that's Jalen Hurts, instead of having 34 pass attempts, he has 28, and Saquon carries the ball 18 times instead of 24. But it's just something to note. They ran a fuck ton of plays, something that most people don't really look at, most people don't think about after like a game, a recap of Sundays. So just kind of keep that in mind with Philly's offense. Like, great start, obviously. You beat the Packers. Jalen Hurts looks good outside of running. Still looks a little funky, but A.J. Brown looks like he's a fucking demon out there. So love his ass. Poise. I mean, this is just the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. This was... sorry, let me pull the stream back up. Where are they? I just want to make sure we're still chilling here. All right, cool. So we got the Falcons and we got the Steelers. Again, shouldn't be obviously it's a huge surprise to everybody. Shouldn't be a huge surprise that the Falcons struggled in this one. Everything is new. Everything. Offense, coordinator, head coach, quarterback, like everything was new here. They're going to take a minute to mesh. I'm worried about Kirk Cousins. I'm worried about the offense right now because of his health. And I want to pull up a tweet that I bookmarked that came from, I think, NFL Next Gen Stats. Field Yates tweeted it out this morning. He said the Falcons were in pistol or shotgun on 96% of their snaps today. Kirk is a guy that plays really well under center. Of the 96% pistol or shotgun. Pistol is like when you have the fucking running back right next to you, right behind you, or just shotgun. So you don't actually have to move within the pocket. Of the 22 snaps out of shotgun, the Falcons had 0 design runs. Of the 26 snaps out of pistol, the Falcons ran the ball on 81% of their plays. This terrifies me for Kirk Cousins' Achilles. If his Achilles is good to go, you're running him under center. You are running play action. You are moving in the pocket. I think this is another reason. I brought this up after, I think, the week 1 of preseason recaps for this, where Michael Penix didn't play after the first week. They said they had seen enough. I immediately said I'm concerned that Kirk might not be fully healthy. There's no reason to sit Michael Penix if you don't plan to fucking play him for 2 more years. I think they were nervous that Kirk might not be ready for week 1. I'm not overly concerned about like his stats here, 155 yards, a touchdown. Those types of under the hood stats of not running any plays under center, those terrify me. He can't move. He is a cone in the pocket. That's what scares me. Pittsburgh Steelers defense is incredible. Obviously, if you watched any part of this game, TJ Watt owned the fucking game. He has a licensing deal on this game. He somehow only came away with 1 sack. I think he might have had 17 sacks called back on penalty. I think he had 5 strip sacks. I think he had 7 tackles for losses. This is the most fake box score I've ever seen. He had 40 sacks, and you can't convince me otherwise. He destroyed our offensive line, and that was part of the problem. So with Kirk Cousins and the Falcons, I'm concerned because our schedule is really hard over the first half of the season. Our next game is at Philly, and then we play Kansas City. Our second half of the season, and this was why I made a video like 3 or 4 days ago, right before the season kicked off, dudes that I'm looking to trade for second half of the year. When we hit week 11, we're playing Denver, the Chargers, Minnesota, Vegas, and then our week 16 and 17, the fantasy playoffs for the Falcons, are the 2 worst defenses in the NFL. It's the Giants and Washington. The 2 worst defenses in the NFL we get for both of our fantasy playoff matchups. By week 16 and 17, our offense will be good. I can't say that that's going to be the case over the first 5 weeks of the season. I'm nervous about that. I guess I'm not nervous about Bijan Robinson's involvement. Like, anyone who believed that Tyler Algier was going to be a big factor in this offense, I feel like is kind of a fucking moron, to be honest with you. It's Bijan time. Unfortunately, like, we might get more games like this than not. Bijan, 18 carries, 68 yards, only 3.8 yards per carry. He did catch 5 passes for 43 yards, so it was really good to see his involvement in the passing game. So it gives you a nice floor in PPR. But a little bit scary otherwise. Drake London obviously fucking flopped. And as someone who had been kind of avoiding Drake London all summer where he was getting drafted, this was one of my concerns, was the Falcons' offense just taking a minute to get into rhythm. I'm not worried about his long-term perspective. I'm as worried about Drake London's long-term perspective as I am about the Falcons overall. Second half of the year, I think they'll be great. First month or 2 of the season, I'm a little bit nervous here, okay? I'll just put it that way. Ray McLeod, not a real target. Darnell Mooney, not a real target. Kyle Pitts, 3 targets. I guess he gets in the end zone, so like, woo, sure, whatever, motherfucker. On the other side of the ball, Justin Fields plays 156 passing yards, does get 57 yards on the ground. This was the Justin Fields experiment. He had kind of like a game-time decision start because Russell Wilson was out for this game. I do think that when Russell Wilson is healthy and he's back, he becomes the starter again. It doesn't inspire much here in this offense. The split between the backfield, though, Najee ended up with 20 carries. 20 carries, 70 yards, obviously didn't look great. The Falcons have a very good run defense, so I wouldn't over-scrutinize how that played out. But Najee Harris did clearly lead the team in snaps. He had 38 snaps to Jalen Warren's 22. Cordarrelle Patterson, 9. Another thing I'm not super overreacting to, given that Warren has been dealing with a hamstring injury for all of August. So I think that split will eventually get a little bit closer. I think there's also not a ton of games where, like, Pittsburgh expects to be leading the game the entire time. So game script was obviously in Najee's favor. Najee did run 12 routes to 7 for Jalen Warren. So that's something to be obviously looked at. But clearly I think Jalen Warren was less than 100%. So I'm not going to like overreact to this one. Najee with 20 carries to Jalen Warren's 2 feels a little bit crazy. In the passing game, it was all George Pickens. George Pickens had 7 targets on 23 pass attempts from Justin Fields. That's like 30%. This was something I had talked about throughout the summer as well. If you watch my preseason recaps, we had talked about how George Pickens left the preseason with a 38% target share while the starters were on the field. This continued. George Pickens looked awesome. He is making insane plays down the field. Ton touchdowns are going to be very hard to come by in this offense, unfortunately. But he's clearly going to be the number one target in this offense, and he looked really good. So I would start Pickens regardless of the quarterback pretty confidently going forward. Let's move on to the next game. We've got the Bills and the Cardinals. And we also have like 2,500 people in here watching this live right now and only 150 thumbs up. I don't want to go as far as saying that feels disrespectful, but like I don't feel respected right now. The respect levels are crazy. I actually feel like Scott Hansen right now because I have to pee so bad. I don't know how he does that. He doesn't pee at all on Red Zone for 7 hours. I've been on the stream for about 7 minutes, and I already have to pee. Kyler looked relatively good. He made plays. I'll say he looked good as a playmaker. This passing offense looked very funky. And maybe it's a product of the Bills defense being a little bit better than maybe we thought. Kyler, 162 passing yards and a touchdown. And I also want to touch on that. Like, this was something I brought up at the very beginning of the stream. There are a lot more people on the stream now than there were at the beginning, so I kind of want to reiterate this. Week 1, a lot of teams very slow out the gate, especially their passing game, because that's so much rhythm and timing based, and so many of these teams did not play in the preseason. Kyler Murray did not play a preseason snap. The starting quarterbacks in Week 1 this season, 2 quarterbacks threw for over 300 yards. Just 2. That's an insanely low rate. The average passing yardage for the starting quarterbacks in Week 1, 190 passing yards, all right? So don't freak out if the passing offenses didn't look in sync yet, all right? So we got Kyler Murray. I will also say, like, close game, box score, there probably would have been a few more statistics here padded on the Arizona side. DJ Dallas did return a special teams touchdown to the Cribbo, so there goes maybe a full drive of stats. But Kyler looked good as a playmaker, 557 on the ground. James Conner did what they had been saying James Conner was going to do pretty much all offseason and operated as the workhorse, 16 for 50 on the ground and a touchdown, 3 for 33 through the air. Trey Benson got a little bit involved, but not much. And even if Trey Benson were to come in for James Conner, Amari DeMarcado is clearly the pass-catching back here. He is playing on almost all the 2- and 4-minute drills and on the like 3rd and long type stuff. So between James Conner and Amari DeMarcado, Trey Benson doesn't really have a 3rd down role, so his upside is extremely capped. In the receiver room, I mean, Marv, man, 1 for 4. I don't really know what to say. Like, just not a generational performance out of him. Again, this is kind of something I echoed in the sit start stream. Was I was just a little worried about Arizona traveling to Buffalo. They obviously ended up playing well, 28 points on the board, but Week 1, that's a really tough environment to play in. Traveling across country, having to play in front of Bills Mafia, like. That's a really tough Week 1. Greg Dortch, 8 targets, though, 6 catches, 47 yards. He is a waiver wire. He's some waiver wire laundry in full PPR leagues. They were chucking up, like, the last play of the game. Kyler Murray chucking up a fucking Hail Mary to a double-covered 5'6" Greg Dortch. That one feels like a question mark when Marv was wide open on the other side of the field. The other funny part about Week 1 is, like, Week 1 analysis is like the king of it's like the king of but this guy would have had a big game if the quarterback didn't miss him. Like Marvin Harrison, they didn't miss him. He didn't even throw him the fucking ball. But you had Adonai Mitchell. We'll get to the Colts obviously soon. Adonai Mitchell was overthrown on, I think, multiple touchdown grabs, like deep shots down the field that ended up going to Alec Pierce. Adonai Mitchell could have had 2 touchdown scores. Jalen McMillan's another one that comes off the top of the mind. He had a touchdown score, but I think he could have had he had another touchdown that was overthrown by Baker, and then another touchdown that he should have scored on that he got grabbed by the defensive back when he beat him in the end zone. So McMillan could have had a monster week. A lot of these players could have had monster Week 1s because they missed Week 1, or they missed a big Hail Mary grab. That's how football works. Like, that is the tough part about predicting stats, and always everyone's always like, oh, that he missed this Week 1. Like, Martin Harrison would have had a bigger game if Kyler Murray looked his way. Unfortunately, it's a 17 game sample size, so those things don't always even out, and those things don't always flatten out, and those aren't always predictive. Like, you have to make plays when the plays are available. Unfortunately, if this was basketball and you're talking about an 82 game motherfucking sample size, yeah, probably evens out. Baseball, 162 games, yeah, those things even out. But fantasy football is a fickle motherfucker because the sample size is so small. 17 games, You got to make it happen when the opportunities are there, because they don't always come again within the next 16 games. So just wanted to throw that out there. Trey McBride, yeah, obviously a disappointing game, but he did lead the team in targets. I will say the positive takeaway here is 9 targets on 31 attempts. That is like a 30% target share. So better to come for sure for Trey McBride. And again, like you compare him to the other guys that were drafted early, the Laportas, the Kelseys, the Mark Andrewses, those types of guys, and like Dalton Kincaid, if we talk about Buffalo, also like awful week 1 type beats out here. All right, so let's move to Buffalo. Josh Allen did his thing. Again, don't go crazy with Buffalo because Arizona's defense is terrible. James Cook, 19 carries, 71 yards, also gets 3 targets, so he ends up going over 100 yards from scrimmage. He did get 2 carries inside the 10-yard line, which is encouraging, but we need to see some goal line work from him. Other than that, yeah, everyone liked Ray Davis a lot, but he is exactly what we kind of thought he was. He's just a guy. Ty Johnson played more snaps than Ray Davis did, so I don't think there's a clear guy behind James Cook. Plus, you got the 2 touchdown scores for Josh Allen on the ground, so as for the last 5 fucking years, Josh Allen, again, is the goal line back. Keon Coleman led the team with 5 targets on 23 pass attempts. So, nice target share, 4 for 51, and this was something that we saw pretty much all summer, was that Keon Coleman was a 100% snap player for the most part. Josh Allen played on 61 snaps. Keon Coleman led the wide receivers with 45%. So 45 out of 60 is about 75% of the snaps. He ran the single most routes, 27. And Dalton Kincaid, we're worried about him, of course. 1 catch for 11 yards on 2 targets. He outsnapped Dawson Knox 51-35. He ran 25 routes. So Keon Coleman led the team with 27 routes. Dalton Kincaid was right behind him with 25 routes. Matt Collins had 36 snaps, 20 routes. Khalil Shakir, 33 snaps, 21 routes. Curtis Samuel closely behind, or half that, I should say, 17 snaps, 9 routes. Going to be a really tricky receiver room to stay on top of. Right now, I think Keon and Khalil Shakir are probably the ones that you want to own. Curtis Samuel not playing a lot because of the turf toe injury, if I had to guess. So he will probably get a little bit more involved as the season progresses, but for right now, he's obviously a stay away in yo lineups. Let's move to the Bears and Tennessee. Will Levis looked bad. Caleb Williams looked bad. Biggest takeaways here, I would say, from the running back rooms. Tony Pollard was a guy that we were really high on. I'm not surprised that he came out and had a big week 1. Obviously, outcarried the shit out of Tajay Spears, 16 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. Tajay Spears only 4 carries for 21 yards. Tony Pollard also got 4 targets. Tajay Spears 4 targets. This felt like this was always going to be the case, but also don't overreact. If you have Tajay Spears, I'm not dropping him. I'm not freaking out, because when you sign a dude like Tony Pollard, you want to get him involved right away. He's the veteran. You gave him a bag. Our game plan is probably to give him a lot of touches, at least early on. Now, if Tony Pollard stays this efficient and continues to play this well, maybe they stay at that level of, touch splits, whatever. They also had the lead for a decent portion of the game, so they're probably trying to run out clock a lot of the time, and that's much more Tony Pollard than it is Tajay Spears. But in September and October, you're always going to have the veterans getting that preferential treatment. So it's not over for Tajay Spears, but it is good to see Tony Pollard look as good as he did. But Tajay Spears, 5.3 yards per carry, Tony Pollard, 5.1, so neither of them looked bad. The passing offense did look horrendous. No real takeaways of anything that I actually want to do with the Tennessee Titans passing offense. The Chicago Bears have some of the best secondary in the league, though, so just, obviously note that. D-Hop clearly far less than 100% in this one. 1 catch for 8 yards. Let's see what the snap splits were on there. Let's see how many snaps he even played. D-Hop he ran a route on 24% of routes. He was just a full cone decoy out there. So, obviously, this is not the D-Hop that we should expect, and we're not dropping him yet, but you can't start him right now. On the flip side, DeAndre Swift looked like DeAndre Swift always does as a runner, 10 for 30 on the ground. Again, with the Chicago passing offense, Caleb obviously looked terrible. They were eating him alive in the backfield. I will continue to go on record that I think this is way more of a product of Tennessee's defense being really good. They added so many pieces this offseason. Their interior lineman, Devondre Sweat, their second-round pick. Was he second round or he might have even been first round? What am I doing here? What are we doing? We got to move my ass back over here. There we go. T'Vondre Sweat. Why is he not on here? Whatever. He was wreaking havoc in the backfield. You got Jeffrey Simmons, L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Quandre. Like, they added – Tennessee's defense, I think, is fucking super legit. So, I think it was a product of that. Caleb's obviously first game. Like, a lot of these quarterbacks looked really good in the preseason. Week 1 speed is clearly a different speed. NFL speed is a different speed than preseason and college speed. So, really disappointing day for all the pass catchers in Chicago. Keenan Allen left with like a heel or foot injury. From what I've heard, it's not really that serious, though, so I wouldn't overreact to it. He did have 11 targets. So, if we are looking at, the target spreads and we say 11 targets out of 29 attempts for Keenan, that's really good. Against a softer defense where, let's see what Chicago plays – Houston next week, so they're not soft, obviously, but you could throw the ball against them. You get Indianapolis, the LA Rams, Carolina Panthers, Jacksonville Jaguars, so much better matchups to come, in my opinion, and I think I'm still, like, okay using Caleb as a QB2. And if Keenan misses time, then we'll probably be looking at Rome a little bit. Patriots and Cincy. Biggest takeaways here, Cincinnati's defense is atrocious. They have lost. Everyone thinks of Cincinnati, I think. They look at, like, the AFC North. They have a great defensive fucking entire division. That's true, except for Cincinnati. The Ravens are great. Cleveland is great. Pittsburgh is great. Cincinnati continuously loses and does not pay their defensive players, and everyone just says, like, nah, they're going to be good. They're not. Jesse Bates, they let a Madden X-Factor safety just walk. Jesse Bates gone. DJ Reader gone. Chidobe Awuzie gone. Like, they're a bad defense. Arguably one of, if not the worst run defense in the NFL right now. So if you have a running back going against Cincinnati, you light them the fuck up, all right? And that's how you allow a team like the Patriots to win. Jacoby Brissett averages 5 yards per attempt and they win. Ramondre looked fantastic. Now, again, I would, if I can trade Ramondre high right now, easiest trade high that you'll get all year. Awful defense. You'll never get this game script again for the Patriots. Antonio Gibson came into this game super questionable. Like that snap split's going to get closer and closer as Gibson gets more healthy. Ramondre looked great. I ain't taking that away from him. But if we're just looking at situations objectively, he's a trade high target for me without a doubt. The receiving group looks awful. It's Jacoby Brissett. Like, there's no ceiling in this offense, so you're just not playing any of those players right now. Cincinnati, Jamar Chase did play 6 targets, 6 catches, 62 yards. He is what he is, I guess. Hopefully we get T. Higgins back next week. Zach Moss out-snapped Chase Brown by a heavy amount. I had a lot of Zach Moss questions in the sit-start live stream on Sunday. That's something I do every Saturday and Sunday. The Saturday live streams are private for anyone that's a Big Dog member. Again, if you are new here, if you are just tuning into the stream, we have a fantastic promo on Underdog right now. If you sign up, if you're a first-time depositor on Underdog and you deposit $10 with our code BDGE, the link for Underdog will be the first link down below. You'll get a free square for tonight, so an absolutely free win. Rodgers over half a yard, plus you'll get access to our Big Dog membership, absolutely free for the entire season. Weekly rankings, waiver wire rankings, that private Q&A where you could ask me any sit-start questions that you have every single Saturday. That's through the Big Dog membership. And then Sunday I do a public live stream on the channel before game time, before kickoff or whatever. So, again, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you got notifications turned on for that. So, Zach Moss seems to be the 1A here, if not like just the starter. He's probably a better runner than Chase Brown. I think that's almost clear now. And he's good enough to like stay intact for the passing game, which is kind of all you can ask. So hopefully they get this shit together. But this passing offense, it just feels like there's always something off with it. They always get it together by the second half of the year. It just kind of feels like they need they need some new juice. They need to, maybe it's a Zach Taylor thing, but it always feels stale. It always feels like everything is forced. It always feels fucking gross, man. I don't know. Texans and Colts, this was a fucking awesome game. CJ Stroud looked incredible. Nico, like this is the thesis behind investing into players on good teams. It's so hard. Like Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell were going back-to-back in drafts pretty much by the end of the summer. Like Tank Dell, 3 for 40. Stephon Diggs, 6 for 33, but he scores the 2 touchdowns. Like when you're on a team that scores 30 points a game, sometimes the guy that you draft is going to be the one that scores the 2 touchdowns. Sometimes the guy that you draft is going to be the one that goes 3 for 40. Sometimes it's going to be the guy that goes 6 for 117. Like Nico, clearly different tier of his own, right? He was a must-draft player in our draft guide. This is why. He showed why. He is what he was last year. Joe Mixon, unbelievable game. 30 carries, 159 yards, and a touchdown. Joe Mixon, 3 catches, 19 more yards. They're talking about 33 touches, 175 yards, and a touchdown. They played bully fucking ball. He looked good. Can't take that away from him. What I will say is, again, I think like with Josh Jacobs, it was just as likely that Jacobs did what Mixon did and vice versa. Mixon did what Jacobs did. And I think you'll have multiple games where they both do that. But for right now, if you drafted Joe Mixon, you're probably feeling pretty fucking good about that workload. The run defense of Indianapolis was, I mean, they were giving up 5.3 yards per carry to Joe Mixon and to Dameon Pierce. So you got some issues when you're doing that shit. You're starting everyone on Houston every week, obviously. On the flip side, Rich, 9 completions, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 carries, 56 yards, and a touchdown. JT ended up getting in. Houston's run defense is very, very good for any of y'all that are unaware, so I'm not too concerned with JT's lack of efficiency there. Rich making just unbelievable throws. This is a fantasy takeaway podcast, so Rich did what Rich does and just makes unbelievable fucking throws. Alec Pierce happened to be on the receiving side of it. Made a really deep 60-yard catch. Touchdown. Ashton Doolin did the same thing. As I talked about a little while ago, A.D. Mitchell, 1 catch for 2 yards, but Anthony Richardson continued exactly where they left off in the preseason, just overthrowing him. A.D. Mitchell could have went 3 for 120 and a touchdown or 2 in this game if A. Rich didn't overthrow him. So wouldn't read too much into that. Alec Pierce, not going to be a dude I'm really targeting on the waiver wire. I think, if you're in a deeper league, you got some extra fab to throw around, you want to just throw him at the end of your bench, you could do worse for sure. A.D. Mitchell is someone that I'm keeping on my roster, though, because of the underlying stats and metrics. Miami versus Jacksonville. T-Law played Gabe Davis, 3 for 62. Brian Thomas had a really good rookie debut, 4 for 47 and a touchdown. He was someone that, we thought was a really good week 1 play because of the over-under in this game and Jalen Ramsey being less than 100%. Christian Kirk had a really uncharacteristic drop, ended up only going 1 for 30, so that was unfortunate. But again, T-Law, 21 pass attempts, that's really gross. There are going to be better days ahead. One of the big takeaways here was Tank Bigsby. They talked all summer about Tank Bigsby being more involved, but they also did that last summer, so it was really hard to buy into it after how bad he looked all of last year. Split carries directly down the middle, 12 for 73, 6.1 yards per carry for Tank, 12 for 44, did get the touchdown for ETN, plus he fumbled on the goal line, so it could have been another touchdown. Tank didn't get targeted in this game. Travis Etienne did get 3 targets. Obviously, it's still Etienne's backfield, but Tank is clearly someone that they want to use back here, so Tank should be owned in every league. On the flip side, we have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, as always, the just most condensed offense of all time. However, Devon Achane is now pretty much the wide receiver 3 there. And as I talked about in the beginning of this live stream, for those of y'all that are, again, new here, my biggest concern for Raheem Mostert now is this offensive line was terrible blocking. You could say what you want for Devon Achane, but he also goes 10 for 24 on the ground, 2.4 yards per carry. Raheem Mostert, 1.5 yards per carry. Their run defense, or their run offense, their offensive line, lost their 2 best pieces this offseason, and it fucking showed. And that's going to be a problem all offseason, and the guy who really depends on that is Raheem Mostert, not Devon Achane. So that's a huge problem for him. And Jeff Wilson got involved. I did see somewhere that I think Achane and Raheem Mostert both got banged up a little bit. I think they both finished the game. I'm not sure, but that's something to keep a close eye on with both of those guys. Devon Achane, 7 targets, 7 catches, 76 yards. I believe the snap count splits were, let me pull them up real quick. They were in favor of Achane slightly. I believe he played 54% of the snaps. Raheem Mostert, 43%. Jeff Wilson, 15%. In terms of routes, Devon Achane was in on 60% of them and had a 20% target share. Now, another stat that was interesting, Devon Achane played out wide or in the slot on 37% of his snaps, which that's big time, okay? So Achane is clearly a massive weapon in this game. He also got all of the carries inside the 5-yard line. There was 2 of them. He got both of them. If he's getting goal line carries, if he's catching passes, like, holy fuck. The ceiling that, we wanted to see from Achane is here. Saints-Panthers, just the worst for everything about Carolina. Holy fuck, did Bryce Young look abysmal. And this was against a team that we thought, like, the Saints were going to be a terrible, terrible, terrible team. And maybe that was just me. Maybe I'm just a fucking moron. But also not taking away too much from the Saints side because they're going against Carolina. Bryce Young looked awful. I think Chuba got banged up too. Only 6 for 14 on the ground. Now, this was the problem. Like, I like Chuba. I was pushing Chuba as a really good draft pick in the 12th, 13th, 14th round of your drafts because he was going to come out, and we projected him to get the majority of carries. And maybe he did get an injury, and that's why they're splitting it with Miles Sanders and Mike Boone. But this is why I'm so hesitant. Like, Chuba, sure, that's probably going to age as a bad pick. But 12th, 13th round, not that big of a deal. The reason I was so hesitant on a dude like Deontay Johnson, where everyone's like, oh, he's such a good separator, it's like this fucking offense, man. When you invest a 6th round pick in Deontay Johnson versus a 12th round pick in Chuba Hubbard, like, that's the difference there. That's what matters in fantasy football. So now you're left with Deontay Johnson, who had 6 targets, cool. Like, Xavier Leggett had 7. Jonathan Mingo had 5. Deontay Johnson, 2 for 19. Throw out all the separation stats you want. It doesn't fucking matter in the Carolina Panthers offense with Bryce Young throwing the ball, man. Like, that's an issue. I don't know that anybody is startable in this entire offense right now. I don't even want to say I don't know because it's just no one is startable in this offense. Derek Carr, 19 for 23, 3 touchdowns. Almost had as many touchdowns as he did incompletions. Alvin Kamara, he absolutely torched my shit. 15 for 83 and a touchdown. Caught 5 passes for 27 yards. Again, I'm not going like too crazy here given they played against the Panthers. It is concerning for Chris Olave, though. Only 2 targets. He was out-targeted by 4 players on this team. Rashid Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, Alvin Kamara. That's a little bit concerning. Olave was like not a guy that I had a lot of confidence pulling the trigger on in the second round because of this offense and because of Derek Carr. While Derek Carr looked great, Chris Olave didn't have the game. He'll have better games, obviously, but like I think we might just need to come to grips with what Olave's ceiling in fantasy is in this offense in particular. Not that he's not a talented-ass player, but like at some point you got to be real with yourself. Minnesota and New York, Sam Darnold obviously looked fucking fantastic to start the game here, and that was because they're playing against the New York Giants defense. So, again, Sam Darnold, the GOAT until he's not. Once they start playing real defenses again, he will probably struggle, but it's good to start him in good matchups. Jefferson, 4 for 59 and a touchdown. They basically just took their foot off the pedal. They didn't need to do anything after the first half because they started scoring at will, and then they had a pick 6 on Daniel Jones, so they didn't really have to do anything on offense. Jordan Addison looked really good, started off hot, and then he injured his ankle. Now, it's really important to note, however, that he was dealing with a high ankle sprain all summer, and we were questioning whether or not he'd be healthy for this game. He was taken off the injury report a few days before the game, so we thought he was fully healthy, looked healthy, then injured his ankle. However, it was the opposite ankle, so it was not a re-aggravation of the same high ankle sprain, which is good news, because if that high ankle sprain came out fully healthy, great. Apparently, it's not a major injury. So if this is just a minor low ankle sprain, we'll have more news at some point either today or tomorrow on Jordan Addison. If this is a minor ankle sprain to the opposite ankle, there's a really good chance he plays next week. I don't know that I have confidence putting him in a lineup, though, but he should be like fully healthy if that's the case by the following week, and then you could be okay putting him into your lineup. The split between Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler was pretty splitty. I believe they split snaps. Again, though, this was like a game script is tough to really tell where the splits were. Aaron Jones, 53% of snaps. Ty Chandler, 39%. But Aaron Jones obviously looked a million times better. 6.7 yards per carry, 14 for 94, and a touchdown on the ground. Craziness. But again, I'm not getting crazy here because they played the New York Giants. On the flip side, Wan'Dale Robinson, 12 targets. How you doing? I mean, PPR laundry, how you doing? I guess you could pick him up, but like, I don't want to start anybody in this offense. Malik, you're still starting. He'll have much better days ahead, but this again was like why I was really hesitant to draft him all summer. Like, he'll have a lot of targets and he'll make big plays, but you're going to get so many of these games where Daniel Jones is just not going to allow Malik Neighbors to prosper, unfortunately. 4.4 yards per attempt for Daniel Jones is just like, Again, I keep going back to just draft players on good teams. If all else is equal, draft players on good teams, because when you're sitting there on Sunday and you're needing for Malik Neighbors to make plays, every time you look at the game, it's like, when are the Giants going to get the ball back? When are they not going to go 3 and out? When are they going to stop punting the fucking ball? When is Daniel Jones going to stop turning the ball over? It just never ends. It's a never-ending quest. That's what happens when you start drafting players on bad teams. It's just like the easiest way to draft a good fantasy team is by drafting players on good teams, okay? You're just otherwise you're overthinking everything. Let's move on to the next game. We got Chargers and Raiders. You want to talk about drafting players on bad fantasy teams? Why I did not want any part of Zamir White, why I did not want any part of Devontae Adams. Now, Brock Bowers was a lot better than maybe anticipated. 8 targets, led the team in targets, 6 catches, 58 yards, and half PPR. That's fine. That's pretty good for week 1 given the other tight end performances. But this is what happens. Like Gardner Minshew throws 1 touchdown. If it doesn't go to your guy, you're kind of fucked. Okay? Devontae, 5 for 59, super mid-game. Jacoby, 3 for 61. Zamir White, 13 carries, 44 yards, 3.4 yards per attempt. 2 catches, 2 yards. Alexander Mattison, 4 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown. Alexander Mattison outplayed Zamir White. I don't think he's better than Zamir White, but he outplayed him in this one, okay? So that's a problem. Alexander Mattison, I think, actually probably needs to be owned in fantasy leagues, as disgusting as that sounds. I think they want to use the second running back, and feels like it's him. Maybe he just needed a new change of scenery outside of Minnesota. But it's scary hours for everyone in Las Vegas. On the flip side, the Chargers played really well. But this is a reason why we wanted to fade Herbert, was passing volume, 26 passes, 144 yards and a touchdown. The concern, I think like the talking point of Harbaugh and Roman was valid, but was not actually the biggest concern to me this offseason of why I didn't want Herbert. It was right there, right here. These weapons, right here. When Quentin Johnson has 5 targets and he's continually dropping passes and he's your wide receiver too, that's a problem. As much as I like Josh Palmer as a floor play, that's not great either. So sorry about that. McConkey did lead the team with 7 targets, though. That's good on 26 attempts. So you're talking about like a 27% target share. Obviously only 7.8 yards per reception. He did score the touchdown, though. So good game for him. Bad game for everybody else except for J.K. Dobbins. Whew. You know, we had a full fade on Gus Edwards all summer. And that worked. I wasn't in on J.K. Dobbins, to be quite honest with you, coming off the ACL tear and Achilles tear. Like, no one comes back from that shit except for him. He goes 10 for 135 and a touchdown. He was busting off long fucking plays left and right. It was kind of funny. Well, not funny, I guess, but he still has that same, like, he can't breakaway. If he was vintage J.K. Dobbins, that stat line would be 10 for 160 and 3 touchdowns. He keeps getting caught from behind, though. Because he's just not conditioned and his body is not there yet, but he'll probably get there. So great to see someone take the backfield here. Kamani Vidal was a healthy scratch, so that's not great. If you drafted him, you could probably drop him. But J.K. Dobbins should be likely the number 1 waiver wire target this week. Again, I'll have the waiver wire video up for y'all tomorrow. But if you're also, again, a Big Dog member, you get our waiver wire rankings plus fab suggestions, rankings within positions and overall rankings. That will be up on the website tomorrow morning for you guys. So become a Big Dog member at bdge.co or sign up through the Underdog Fantasy app, depositing using promo code BDGE. Let's move to the Seahawks and the Broncos. This is one that I really caution people not to like go crazy about. The Broncos with the new quarterback, Bo Nix, he obviously played awful. 3.3 yards per attempt, 42 attempts, you end up with 138 yards. That shit was, that was really tough to watch. Throws 2 interceptions, 5 for 35 and a touchdown on the ground. He definitely scoots more than I think a lot of people realize. The backfield split was kind of eye-opening, given that like the game script was never out of hand, and Jaleel McLaughlin just played a significant amount. Now, Javonte outsnapped him 52% to 35, but in terms of rushing attempt percentage, they were pretty damn even. Jaleel had 10 carries, 27 yards. Javonte only 8 carries, 23 yards. Jaleel McLaughlin, 5 targets to Javonte's 2. Neither of them did fucking anything with any of the targets, as is the case for almost everybody on this team. Josh Reynolds, 8 targets, 5 for 45. Devon Vele, rookie, 8 targets, 8 catches, 39 yards. Courtland Sutton, 12 targets, 4 catches, 38 yards. I think they need some time to develop the offense a little bit. All right, give Sean Payton a couple weeks. Don't start anybody in this offense right now unless the matchups are phenomenal. Next week they play against Pittsburgh. That is not a phenomenal matchup. They play Tampa Bay after that. I think you could probably play some pieces in that game. They get the Jets after that, but then they get Vegas, the Chargers, New Orleans, Carolina. So some startable players there, but overall right now, not a lot of confidence in the fantasy players to start. Anyone from the passing game, I'd be okay going back to some of the running backs if you're like super desperate. On the flip side, Seattle's another team where we'll start with this. DK Metcalf got shadowed, right? This was one of my concerns yesterday. He got shadowed by Patrick Surtain, so like he never really had a hope. DK Metcalf's great, but Patrick Surtain is fucking him. If he's going to shadow you for the game, you're cooked. So Metcalf 3 for 29 shadowed. Tyler Lockett was the emergence, right? Everybody wants to talk about. I still think the biggest way to weed out who the fucking fish in this industry are the people that believed that JSN was the best receiver coming out of Ohio State of that trio of fucking him and Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr. JSN's the best one out of them. If anyone fucking believed that, one, you just didn't watch any film, which if that's the case, then you shouldn't be giving out opinions. Two, like you're a fucking fish if you believe that. But I also don't want to like jump the gun on JSN in terms of him being a productive fantasy player this year, because in the same vein that new offense coordinator, new head coach, completely new system, going to take some time to mesh here, okay? So with the 3 wide receiver sets, with the new offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, coming in, like, don't go crazy, all right? Don't go crazy trying to figure out what's wrong with this offense, because the truth of the matter is this. When you look at the numbers, and this is actually surprising to me right now that I'm looking at it, we're going to go through the wide receiver numbers for you guys. While Tyler Lockett led the team in receiving with 7 targets, 6 catches, 77 yards, JSN had 2 targets, 2 catches, 19 yards. DK Metcalf ran a route on 93% of the snaps. JSN ran a route on 89% of the snaps. Tyler Lockett was down at 71% of the snaps. The difference is JSN had an 8% target per route run rate, where Tyler Lockett had a 35% target per route run rate. JSN, we were hoping for more downfield work. His ADOT was 3.5 yards. That's worse than last year. DK Metcalf's ADOT was 12.8. Tyler Lockett's was 13.4. So again, we're not dropping JSN. We want to give this offense a second to like see what it can actually become. But it's also, just worth noting. Now, since JSN was in on so many snaps, let's look at the slot to out wide split. He was in on 53 snaps, played slot 40 of the 53, so still a very high snap guy. I guess Tyler Lockett, they were just maybe not playing him as much because of the injury that he had leading up to the game, but he still outproduced every fucking body. Yep, Tyler Lockett out wide for the majority of the game. So that is obviously something to note in the backfield. Kenneth Walker did bang up his Abby, but he had a fucking huge game, 20 for 103 and a touchdown on the ground. Caught 2 passes for 6 yards. He came out after the game, said he was fine. I guess you can take his word for it or take him at his face value and just kind of see what the injury report says. If he misses time, obviously you want to start Zach Charbonnet as an RB2, but Kenneth Walker seems to be a high-end RB1 for right now. Cowboys-Browns. The Cowboys just whipped the shit out of the Browns. Zeke played a lot more than Rico Dowdle. Zeke seems to be the 1A to Rico Dowdle's maybe 1B, which is kind of the side that we were on all offseason. Zeke gets his first touchdown. He's going to be a goal line problem. Passing game, they didn't really need him to do much, honestly. CD goes 5 for 61 on 10 targets. Brandon Cooks does get in the end zone, but 4 for 40. No one else involved. Jake Ferguson did suffer an MCL sprain, so that's kind of unfortunate. If you got Jake Ferguson, you're looking at waiver wire pickups, guys like Isaiah Likely, obviously. You got guys like Colby Parkinson. You got guys like who else? I had a couple other guys. You can go check out my waiver wire rankings. Become a Big Dog member if you want them. Both tight ends actually got hurt in this one. Jake Ferguson, MCL sprain, likely a multi-week injury. David Njoku, high ankle sprain, definitely a multi-week injury, which is unfortunate because he was like kind of their short game. On the flip side, dude, Deshaun Watson is horrendous. His arm is literally made out of spaghetti. I will say though, and this is going to be such a contrarian take and could age horrendously. Sean Watson looks horrible. He's not bouncing back. He's really bad. I think he might be a buy low in super flex leagues, though. He's going to have much better days ahead of him. Dallas is such a tough defense to play against, dude. Their pass defense is so good. So this is one of those week 1 overreactions I don't want to get to. The next 4 weeks for Cleveland: Jacksonville, the Giants, the Raiders, and the Commanders. If you're in a Superflex league and you can get Deshaun Watson for really cheap, he's going to be bad. You don't want to watch the games if you own him. He'll be okay for fantasy. He will be a viable quarterback 2 over the next month of the season. In the backfield, Jerome Ford dominated touches, obviously 12 for 44 and a touchdown, caught a ton of dump-off passes. This was always the play behind Jerome Ford. This was always the reason we had him highly ranked, is because he's just going to be a workhorse. 18 touches, 6 catches, 25 yards. Not doing much because no one in this offense is doing much, but Amari Cooper locked up. Deshaun Watson in tough matchups is going to be really bad, but he'll be fine in good matchups. Let's move to the Bucs and Washington. Jaden Daniels went crazy. Jaden Daniels was not a guy that I was in on at all, and the thesis behind him for a lot of people were that he would do exactly what he did in this one, so this could end up being a whiff for me for sure. He didn't look great in the passing game, 184 scoreless yards, but did get in twice on the ground, 16 for 88. I'm still worried. I'm worried about, like, this offense, the passing game, right? Like, I wanted nothing to do with this because of Cliff fucking Kingsbury. It's just completely horizontal, and that's what this was. They did not throw the ball downfield whatsoever. The 2 longest passes were to running backs. They were not downfield. Eckler had a 22-yarder. Brian Robinson had a 32-yarder. Outside of that, any non-running back, the longest completion was 12 yards to Zach Ertz. So the passing game is gross. The offensive line is gross. He was under pressure a lot. He was getting hit a lot. He also doesn't protect himself when he runs. That is what scares me with Jaden Daniels. But for now, you obviously start him all the time. Brian Robinson, the clear workhorse here. 12 carries, 40 yards, and a touchdown. 3 for 49 through the air as well, which was fantastic to see. He also got ruled down at the half-yard line. He would have had a second touchdown. So Brian Robinson looks like a rock-solid RB2. On the flip side, Baker plays great, 289, 4 touchdowns. Washington defense is going to be just, their legs are open the entire fucking season, okay? So Baker, 4 touchdowns, disgusting. Backfield. Rachaad White continues to be a really bad runner of the football. No surprise there. I wouldn't read too much into the splits here with Bucky going 9 for 62. They obviously got up really big, and it became garbage time in the fourth quarter, so that was a lot of Bucky time. I will say, though, Bucky is without a doubt a waiver wire target. I think they're probably going to use Bucky in a decent capacity. Rachaad White, definitely the workhorse here. Like, not a great game overall, but 6 for 75 through the air. That's always the reason you want Rachaad White, because he is such a good pass catcher. 21 touches, goes over the 100-yard mark. So if you have him if you're a full PPR league, you're still walking away with 16 or 17 points. You're super happy with that. All the touchdowns went to the passing game, but sometimes those are going to go to the ground game. Chris Godwin, 8 for 83. I did look it up. They talked about how Chris Godwin was going to play more in the slot. That was the case. He played about 65% of his snaps in the slot. And that's really good news for y'all that drafted him. So 8 for 83 and a touchdown. Mike Evans continues to fucking just torch the world. 5 for 61, 2 touchdowns. Jalen McMillan, I covered this earlier. He went 1 for 32 with a touchdown. He was overthrown on another touchdown. He had PI called against the defender in the end zone on another one. He could have had a really big day. Jalen McMillan absolutely needs to be picked up and owned in every fantasy football league. If something happens to Godwin or Mike Evans, he is going to be a huge playmaker for you in fantasy. But again, the Tampa Bay offense look great right now. As soon as they have tough matchups, they'll come back down to earth, as every team eventually does. They play at Detroit next week, so that's going to be a much tougher test, although they're a young defense, so they're probably going to have to just improve a little bit. Denver at home is not tough. Philly, Atlanta, New Orleans. So they don't have a tough calendar overall. So Tampa Bay passing offense might be all right for a minute. I love that, like, everything just changes on a dime, where it's like David Canales is a quarter. You know how many fucking quarterback whisperers there are in the NFL? It's incredible. It's incredible. Everybody's a quarterback whisperer. It has nothing to do with the quarterback. Nothing. It never has anything to do with the quarterback or the players. It's just a quarterback whisperer for sure. And then Sunday Night Football. Great fucking game out here. Great game. We got an OT thriller. Detroit Lions take down the Los Angeles Rams at home 26-20. Now, we do have a bunch to talk about here. Stafford looked fantastic. This was a a decent game for Kyren Williams. Like in PPR, he ended up having 14 or 15 points. He was one of the fades I gave for underdog picks, which we'll get to my picks in a second. You can track all the picks that I made yesterday. I had him under 63.5 rushing yards because the Detroit Lions rushing defense is really, really good, and you saw that on display last night. But you could also see here, Kyren Williams, 18 carries. Ronnie Rivers, 2 carries. Blake Corum, missing, dead in action. Kyren Williams, still very, 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 very much the bell cow out here in Los Angeles. You didn't even have another running back with a target. So Kyren Williams, 21 opportunities, picking up exactly where he left off. Detroit, very good run defense, so wasn't expected to have a big game. Still gets in the end zone. The biggest news here, of course, is Puka. Re-aggravates that knee. Now, the Bursa sack was something that is not a major injury. However, apparently, and maybe this is on me for not seeing this, but I was watching a video today, a doctor that covers the sport, talking about how when he saw the original video of Puka getting hurt, he was concerned about a PCL sprain on top of the Bursa sack. I thought Puka was fine, given the fact that he returned to practice fully. But if it was a PCL sprain and that was not reported, then that's kind of probably where this re-injury occurred. We have to wait for news on Puka to see if it's serious or if it matters. But if he misses time, Cooper Kupp might be a good fantasy football player again this year. Cooper Kupp is fucking back. Holy shit. 21 targets, career high, 14 catches, 110 yards, and a tugger. That man was in motion on like 78,000% of plays. The Rams, I can't believe the Rams even made this game competitive. The amount of injuries that this team suffered yesterday was crazy. Steve Avila, they were without having seen. They lost like 3 of their starting offensive linemen. They lost Puka. Like, I thought they were cooked. Sean McVay is just so goated as a coach, dude. So Puka leaves. Tyler Johnson has that big play, 63 yards. Tyler Johnson, anyone out there that played Dynasty, when Tyler Johnson's name was brought up, you definitely perked up a little bit. Like, you stood up in your chair a little bit. Tyler Johnson, if y'all remember, him and Rashad Bateman played together at Minnesota. And Tyler Johnson, like, super athletic freak. A lot of people like Tyler Johnson as much as Rashad Bateman as a prospect coming out. Johnson fell to like the 4th or 5th round in the draft. Tampa Bay never really stuck. But this is interesting. This could be interesting. He came out of nowhere. I didn't even know he was on the team. It was all Demarcus Robinson as the 3. It was all Jordan Whittington as the 4 all offseason. And then he came out of fucking nowhere. Let me look at the snap counts actually real quick. Cooper Kupp played 100% of the routes, or ran a route on 100% of the snaps. A 44% target share. Oh, I have him as my wide receiver 2 in my main league behind A.J. Brown. Life is so good. I'm the GOAT. Demarcus Robinson, 92% of routes. Tyler Johnson, 65% of routes. Tutu Atwell, 8% of routes. Okay, so that seems to be the pecking order. D-Rob will be the 2. Tyler Johnson will be the 3 if Puka misses time. Let's also look at how the lineup went in terms of route, fucking where the guys were lining up. I don't forget the goddamn word. I've been talking for so long. My throat's about to catch on fire. Cooper Kupp in the slot for 62 of 78 snaps. Demarcus Robinson was out wide for 50 of 72 snaps, and then Tyler Johnson was out wide for 33 of 51 snaps. So Tyler Johnson, DeMarcus playing out wide, Cooper Kupp obviously in the slot. Cooper Kupp's a high-end wide receiver 1 if Puka misses time, obviously. So shout out to y'all that drafted him. We had him ranked, I think, like wide receiver 10 during draft season. On the flip side, David Montgomery, they played bully ball, Jahmyr Gibbs. They just split series, and they should. They just should. It's just good football. It's just good fundamental. Like, we got the best offensive line. We're going to get push. We're going to make plays regardless of who the fuck is in the backfield. I think if you had the mindset going in that Gibbs was going to be the workhorse here, that felt like a very easy trap to avoid. That being said, though, Gibbs got a goal line carry, got in the end zone. Gibbs caught 4 passes, 34 yards. Like, this was not the ceiling game for Gibbs, but this was a really nice floor play for him, right? Ends up with 75 yards and a touchdown, 4 catches, so ends up with a really nice PPR play. Jameson Williams, 9 targets, along with a 52-yard touchdown grab. Like, that was good to see from J-Mo. Not great from Amon-Ra St. Brown, someone we were super fucking high on all offseason. Don't freak out in week 1. We've got a 2-year sample of Amon-Ra being incredible. We have Sam Laporta had a down game. It was just the way the script went. I'm sure their game plan was to take out Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they did it to perfection. But great to see J-Mo bounce back and really become that playmaker. If that is going to be the case for this offense, they're going to be impossible to stop, and they're only going to get better. So that is where I will leave y'all. That was week 1 recap. Oh, no, we're not going to leave you because we have to do the recap of all of our picks from yesterday. And we do that on Pickett. If you guys are new to Pickett is, all right, we got a 22% ROI from yesterday. I guess we'll take it. I mean, we'll definitely fucking take it. I'm usually losing fucking money all day, but sure. Pickett, you can follow all my bets I make. So if you're ever like, oh, it's Monday Night Football, I want to see what Nick takes. Oh, it's Thursday Night Football, I want to see what Nick takes. Oh, it's Sunday Night Football, I want to see what Nick takes. Go to Pickett. It is free to download. Their app is free to download, okay? It's also one of the first links in the description down below. And if it's not, I'll make sure I put it in immediately after this game or immediately after this live stream ends. So go to it, refresh it. It'll be down there. This is also the best place for you to track all of your apps, okay? So if you put bets in on DraftKings, oh, that's why my record's not as good because I hit 3 bets on DraftKings yesterday and I don't have DraftKings synced on here. But if you play on Underdog, if you play on DraftKings, if you play on BetMGM, if you play on all these different sports books, you could sync them all onto the Pickett app for free, and it will bring in, your ROI, your record over a week, over a day, over a month, and you could just see all your bets in one place. You don't have to switch between apps every 5 seconds. So we took, let's see. Oh, let me move myself over here. We took JT over 0.5 touchdowns he scored. We had David Montgomery over 13 carries. That felt free given what the game script was likely going to be. We missed on we had a free square for Dak over half a yard, so obviously hit there. Jaden Daniels did not go over 210. I thought the game script would be good enough that he would have enough passing attempts, but never be surprised with how bad Cliff Kingsbury's passing offense can be. Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, and Michael Wilson both absolutely went flat on my receptions. They started off the game quickly getting catches and then just died out. This is probably the most embarrassing slip of the day for me. Thielen, okay, first touchdown scorer. He was like fucking 19-1 odds. Trey McBride went under 49.5 receiving yards. Tough, 30% target share, but he did his damn thing. We had James Cook going over 81 total yards. He easily hit that. Najee Harris going over 7.5 receiving yards. He hit that, so we won a big hundo piece there. This was just a free square or just a quick $10 bet. Josh Palmer not going over 34 receptions. 34 receiving yards is gross. Caleb Williams over 0.5 interceptions. Thought he would throw one the way he played yesterday. I feel like he should have. Then we hit on another Najee Harris, James Cook square. Kind of the same thing. Over 11.5 longest reception. I love doing like the longest reception for running backs. That is actually one of my plays tonight. Is it synced here? I don't think they have my bet right now. Oh yeah, they have it for here. Okay. So I have a square going right now where one half of it was from yesterday where I took Kenneth Walker over 67.5 receiving or 67.5 rushing yards. He obviously hit that. What are we doing? Zoom back out. Are we frozen? What the hell is going on? I don't know if you guys can see this. I think, no, we're not frozen. All right. But Kenneth Walker over 67.5 receiving yards or rushing yards. God damn it, Nick. Lock in. We already hit that. And then for tonight, we have Breece Hall, longest reception, 12.5 yards. And I want to say they still have that up on Underdog right now. So Breece Hall, I think, is just going to be so involved in the passing game tonight. They give him 1 or 2 screens. He's so explosive that I think he goes over 12.5 for his longest reception. So if you want to tail that, if you want to tell all my picks, again, Pickett is the way to do so. When you get on there, like I said, it's free. You don't have to deposit anything. There's a slot that asks you who sent you there. If you type in BDGE, you get a free anywhere from $3 to $100 which is cool because you don't have to put any money down. You have to put a credit card down or anything. So track all your bets, track all of our bets, track everyone on the team's bets. It's a beautiful app, right? And again, if you want to take this one, 12.5 receiving yards, that can be taken on Underdog Fantasy. So download Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code BDGE when you get on there. Just use code BDGE on every website you possibly fucking go to, okay? Free square. So you can go Rodgers, half a yard. Breece Hall, over 12.5 receiving yards. And you get our membership absolutely free for the entire year, which has our waiver wire rankings going live tomorrow, has our weekly rankings going live tomorrow. It's got everything. Private Q&A on Saturday. That is the week 1 stream. That was a good one. That was a long one. I'm hurt right now. I'm hurt, dog. But I love you. I will battle through the pain every week for you guys, okay? So if you enjoyed the stream, make sure you hit the button that looks like this, please. If you got value from it, I appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on so you know when I go live throughout the week as well as next Monday. I love you. I'm going to go upload this to podcast if you missed it. I'm out of here. Whew.